Like if they want to do a retail business, I tell them, go into a store and talk to the people on the floor. They know retail. And if once you talk to enough people on the floor, get them to put you in touch with the manager. And it's amazing how much more access you have to people in the field than you think. Like a lot of people, if you're doing something in coffee, it's like you're going to go to Starbucks or whatever your coffee shop is, and you're going to talk to people there. And then you're going to work your way up the ladder to talk to more and more people in different ways. But you have access to people more than you think you do. So it's a lot of access here as well. And getting people to think in different ways. Thank you. So for 10 people in the field that are accessible, we're going to do the same thing we did with the friends and family. It's just with different people. And the advice that we're going to get is going to be much more valuable. And there's 2 questions that we ask at the end. Do you have any ideas that I didn't think to bring up? Do you have anyone you can put me in touch with? Now you're starting to get serious answers. And a lot of people don't know 10 people in the field. You might start off with, you remember that essay at the beginning? You had 3, didn't know I was going to make you talk to them. Well, now you guys know, so I tricked you. Or the trick isn't going to work with you guys. But you're going to talk to, you might not know 10 people at the beginning of this exercise, but that puts more value on getting answers when you ask, do you know anyone I could talk to? It also puts on like research and finding ways of getting in touch with people. And one of the big things I talk about is this, I'm not into cold calling. I don't like to contact people out of the blue. I do give you scripts to contact people to use to make it more likely to get responses from people. But there's an amazing thing that happens here sometimes, which is, this is amazing. It's like you contact someone out of the blue that doesn't know who you are. You get a couple pieces of advice from them. And then you ask them for, do you know anyone else I could talk to? Sometimes they'll give you advice, a contact to talk to. When you talk to that next person, you say, so-and-so referred me. That's a warm connection. You went from a cold connection to a warm connection. It got better. That's creating community. So what happens here is what you've done before. What you did before was playing the scales, and now you're playing music. So now you're going to do stuff that you've practiced before. You tend to get, by now, you tend not to get many new questions, and so you know how to answer them. So you're having conversations with people here that are going pretty well. So it's the same with friends and family members, asking advice, not for evaluation, improving it after each conversation. They're improving less and less all the time. Like, at the beginning, it's like increasing a lot, now it's kind of leveling off. And with the same 2 questions, and a lot of times you're getting referrals here. Oh, yeah, so one of my students here at this stage, question?
Going through these 10 steps, it feels like it is for people like who have not started or who want to start from a clean slate, right?
Uh-huh.
They say there are people who have identified a problem which they think is a real problem and trying to solve it.
Uh-huh.
Can this course be tailored for them? Can I pick up from step 5 or step 6 and run with it?
I would not recommend it because the earlier steps bring in skills that are useful. I'm trying to decide if I should say most or all of the students that I've worked with that had stuff that they had ideas at the beginning, greatly value the stuff at the beginning. It's not about, I'm not telling them to do it because I'm a professor and I want them to do work. It's because you get skills during those stages that most people don't get. And the students that I had, as I mentioned, the students last semester who they were generating revenue already, they learned things about themselves that they just didn't have before. And so that type of growth and learning, I guess you could if you wanted to, I just don't recommend it. And it's pretty quick if you already have gone through the stages in some way before. People, like I said, people in week 8 switch, and by week 10, they're fully caught up. So it's pretty quick.
Well, and if you're doing it within your field, it doesn't necessarily mean you have to talk to 10 people you've never spoken to before. They just have to be, it could still be 10 people you've already known, but now you're talking to them about this idea, this problem, this solution.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a focus, and when you're talking about something that's yours, these conversations, generally people, when you take my course in actually online or at university, you have to write a reflection every week about what happened. You learn by doing, but you really internalize and expand through reflection. And people I didn't know that I could talk to people like this. I didn't realize it was so much fun. It was enjoyable and stuff like that. So there's lots of stuff. It's like people who are entrepreneurs, who love being entrepreneurs, you become like that from doing these things. Oh, yeah, so the theater director. So one of my students was, she had an idea for a business that was going to be, I'm not quite doing it justice, but it was like a cable channel for Broadway shows, which at first I didn't think would make sense because you're going to cannibalize the business, but it turns out there's a lot of people who can't afford to go to Broadway but do want to pay to see the stuff. Anyway, that's her business. But at one point she wanted to talk to some producer at some Broadway house. So she's like, she doesn't know how to reach the person. So she calls up the Broadway house, a theater on Broadway. And it's like the ticket office or whoever picks up. And she goes, I'm trying to find out how to reach so-and-so. And the person's like, puts on hold. So she's in hold, comes off hold. Hello? It's the guy. And she's like, there's a script that's like, I'm a student, I'm working on this entrepreneurial project, I wonder if I could ask for some advice. And the guy's like, I don't know who you think you are, but I'm busy. Like, I don't have time for this kind of stuff. And she continues with the script, and he answered her questions. So when she comes in class, she's like, I'm freaked out by this. And so it wasn't the first time something like that happened. So I went through this kind of script where I'm like, were you physically injured? Did you lose money in this conversation? Did your friends see you and laugh at you? Did it ruin your project? And she's like, no. I was like, and we were kind of friendly because the class was a small class. And I go, was there any material changed for the worse in this that's measurable that you can tell me about? And she's like, I guess not. And I was like, would you want to do it again? She's like, yes. And the whole class was like, I want to talk to a director and get yelled at. And so this happens sometimes. And that's how, and forever after that, she could say, I spoke to, no lying whatsoever, I spoke to so-and-so, he said this about my thing, and I improved it in this way, and that's the contribution from that guy. And stuff like that happens here. Yeah, sometimes the conversations are like, they don't go so well like that. But no one has ever gotten worse. No one's life has ever gotten worse because of that. And a lot of people are like, oh, I want to do that too. Okay, well, the interlude was talking about the question about changing topics. So I do recommend to people, if you think about changing topics, change topics. Or when I say topics, I should say problems and solutions. If you want to change, it generally means you become more aware of something internal to yourself that's valuable, that you were protecting, it was a vulnerable thing, that you didn't want to fail on, and now that you think, maybe I have a chance of making this happen, now you think, I want to do that. And every case where that's happened, the person has been glad that they shifted. And when you go through the second time, like I said, it's fast, you also learn more the second time. So sometimes it happens between 6 and 7, sometimes 7 and 8, usually happens somewhere later. Okay, so the visual model of all the relevant parties is you want to list, first you just list all the suppliers, all the employees, whoever is relevant here. Could be competition, could be, I don't know, the governments, things like that. You got to figure it out. You list them. Next stage is you draw them out, and I explain how to do it. And I'm actually going to show a diagram in a second, where you put yourself at the middle, my company, and then you put each one separate. You have arrows between each one that interacts. You put arrows between, and the arrows show the value. Sometimes cash going one way, a product goes the other. Sometimes cash goes out, sometimes cash goes in. Sometimes it's value, sometimes it's relationships. And there's an important thing I say here, is that everyone has to be represented, and all the arrows have to balance. So no one should be, if you ever have, or if it doesn't balance, if something's going in but not out, you got to explain why someone's getting something for nothing. If it's going out but not in, you got to explain why someone's giving something and not getting anything in return. Because if you have like a bunch of volunteers who are giving their labor and not getting something back out, which sometimes people do that, you're probably going to have some turnover there. Not necessarily bad, it might work, but you got to explain, that's got to go into your model. Unbalanced arrows, giving something for nothing or getting something for nothing, usually something's off there. So all arrows should balance. And why is this party getting something for nothing, or why is this party giving something and getting nothing in return, and how they react. So I think I have a drawing here. So this is like one that I took from one of the students. This is the output of this stage. This one happens to be a game developer app. So I don't know, this is just what it looks like. Everyone is different. This one is relatively complex because you have like the users are interacting with the store and with the counselors and stuff because this is like a game to improve people's lives. So you get something like this as the output. Notice there's a bunch of arrows going out with money, and there's one going in. Usually that's often the case. So in this stage, arrows in and out that have money attached to them, those are the left-hand column of your finances. So all the arrows going in, revenues. All the arrows going out, costs. Then I give a little bit of detail. Usually it's going out monthly for 2 years. At the top, put some assumptions. If you know how to do that. If you don't, you just fill out the numbers of each month. And then you calculate at the bottom the profits, revenues minus costs. And then accumulated profits, so you get an idea of what your greatest loss is going to be. Sorry if I went too fast. But this is the entrepreneur's quick and dirty way of doing things. Again, what I always say in class, if you show this stuff to an accountant, I will absolve all responsibility for this. I'm not saying this is like double entry or whatever. This is to give you a general feel of the size, the scope. But the big thing is, to ensure that your firm is viable, that your revenues are greater or equal or greater than your costs, and that it's sustainable, that it can keep going, and that to get to the details, so you know what the assumptions are. Like I said before, it's not chemistry lab. You can change the numbers. Just be honest with yourself. If I'm going to raise my revenues, how am I going to do that? Is that going to incur some cost somewhere else? Is it going to take away from other things that are important to me in my life? If I'm going to lower some costs, can I really pull that off? Can I sustain that in the long term? You got to answer these questions for yourself. And that's why the goal is not yet to make presentable financials. It's to understand the business. And this is where my project is awesome. This is going to be a cakewalk. A lot of people, especially the undergrads, they feel like, oh my God, this is so easy. I can't wait to get this thing going. And then it turns into shit got real. And this is where they're like, holy, I really got to make this thing work. And it takes a lot of work, but the passion comes out. And I get to curse in class. The second personal essay, as I described, students often don't realize how far they've come. And this reinforcement helps a lot. It's something happens internally that they're like, I look at entrepreneurship differently. There's all sorts of, like, I used to think this, and now it's like different. So they've grown personally, as an individual, professionally, as a business person, relationships. They now have a network that's much greater in the field. They also know how to network more effectively. Everything so far has been building up to the next step, and this is what reinforces it. To me, this is like where you create everything. Now you've been running along, now you have a platform that you can really jump off of. Solid ground. If you didn't, without this stage, people didn't feel like they had that sense of, I'm now on solid ground that I wasn't on before. And the point is, the next step, you're going to talk to valuable people in your field as peers. They don't know you just started. If they're a founder, they are a founder too. And so, from the personal essay, the research, the recommendations from 25 conversations at least, you're now going to be able to say, you know, that director or producer, whatever, the guy, the Broadway person, gave me this advice, and you're really talking about it, not faking it. You're not name dropping. You're talking about your actual experience. So you can, and it's based on substantive conversations, often with people that want you to succeed. Often they put you in touch with people here. Because no one has, at the beginning, 10 value, very rarely does someone know 10 people in the field. You got to work to get these connections. But oftentimes you're going to go back to people that you spoke to before in the previous stages and get those conversations going again. Hey, I really need to talk to so-and-so. Can you put me in touch? And you end with the same questions here. Here the questions start becoming very different. When you start asking for connections, they start giving you really meaningful stuff. Another big thing happens that here's for people who want to be more entrepreneurial, but not necessarily start a new company for themselves. Something happens here when you talk to someone who's a valuable person, a CEO, a founder, someone really high-ranking with a lot of authority. When you come in as a problem solver, hey, you know these people out in the world that have this problem? And you can talk about it really like with a lot of empathy because you've talked to people with this problem. You know, I have this idea for how to improve it. These people are so used to people coming and being like, can you give me a job? Can you give me a raise? I got to work on this project. You're coming in with what you're asking for is making them feel like an expert. You're coming in as a problem solver. They see you as probably someone, a peer. Something happens a lot that they start sharing their problems with you. Now, there's a technical term in business. When someone with authority or high rank shares their problem with you, what's that called? That's a job offer. They may not know it, and you might not know it, but if you know how to handle it, and I say how to do it, which is basically, here, write this down. Well, it's going to be on the slide, and it's going to be here in a second. But it's, this is if you're looking for a job, if you're looking for promotion, you can do the same stuff that I'm talking about here in order not to start your own project, but just to have the managers in your company see you as a problem solver. Because if you're a problem solver and they're high up in the company and you're low in the company, Do they want you solving low-level problems that no one cares about? They want you solving high-level problems. They want you talking to them. They want to move you up. So the magic words are, yeah, you make them feel comfortable sharing the problems, not vulnerable. I have experience working in this area and I like it. That's like the basic gist of it. I have experience working in this area and I like it. And then throw on, I have a couple half-baked ideas I think might be able to work. Can you give me a little time to come back to you, maybe a week? Let me fully bake these ideas? Not everyone's going to say yes, but you're going to get a lot of yeses on that one. Now you have a relationship with that person. And if you have time and are able to now maybe do the same process we just talked about with their idea, you might have that project. Now, not so simple, but I mean, simple in process doesn't always work out that way, but the more you do it, the more that sort of stuff happens. Which is why, I'm going to talk about in my online course how I write up all of this stuff, all of these steps written out, and I also recorded myself doing it, like describing it, each step to someone, and I recorded that, and every time I record someone, before we finish, they get a job. I can't stop them from getting jobs. Like, I can't tell them don't get a job, and they keep getting jobs, and they it's crazy. This stuff is, it's amazing. So if you do my course, you'll see that the last one is, I don't have a recording for the last step because they get hired. This is my problem. Yeah, so there was the second part of it. I have some simple ideas that might help. Can I take some time to fully bake them and get back to you? So, okay, those were the 10 steps. Any questions before kind of talking about what happens afterward?
In terms of ideas, coming up with ideas, do you recommend identifying a problem first and working towards a solution, or could be identifying technology and working towards it?
I recommend starting with the problem. If you have a technology, I still recommend what's the problem that you're trying to solve. Because a lot of people have a solution, and if you come to someone and you say, they can tell when you're coming in and you want something from them. You want them to buy your thing as opposed to coming in and you want to solve their problem. And even if you do know their problem, for them to share it with you, it puts you in a much better position to listen to them and then sell to them and solve their problem. So, any other questions? So some themes, I'm going to tell you some themes that come up in the course. And all I can do right now is tell you these things. Some of you who have lived them, these will resonate with you. What happens when you do this course is by the end of the course, the students are saying it back to me. The meaning, the value of these things, I'm just going to say it to you, and it's not going to mean what it does. But for those of you who take the course, at the end you're going to be like, holy shit, that was amazing. Oh, I cursed twice. Personality matters less than skills, and not just any skills, but skills that you can learn. People think you got to be born an entrepreneur. Not the case. And the more that you learn these skills, the more you start feeling like, oh man, I learned this one, I learned that one, I can learn these other ones. The idea of a lifetime comes once a month. This is the other big answer to the NDA stuff. It's like, a lot of times you had some great idea, then somewhere along the way you find out someone else had it before and they're already running with it, but you didn't know about it when you started. Or it turns out that it's not as good as you thought it was, or something like that. Wait a month and you got another one. It's that easy, if you know how to turn crappy ideas into great ideas. The reason a lot of great entrepreneurs have only one or two great ideas in their life is because they're executing it. The idea itself is really, really easy to come by if you know how to do it, if you've done this process a couple times. Not that this is the only way to come up with them. Better than a great idea is an okay idea plus listening to the market, advice from the market, flexibility, and iterations. To me, iterations is the main measure of the quality of an idea. How many iterations has it gone through? And when you're talking to all these people getting all this advice, a lot of the advice you're going to ignore, but a lot of it you're going to implement. And you're going to iterate. Then when you start doing the financials and the model, you iterate more from a different standpoint. And by the end of it, you feel like this idea is amazing. Okay, you're going to do the themes. If you pitch, they'll evaluate. That tends to separate. If you ask for advice and act on it, they'll tend to support you. It's the difference between this and this. Adversarial versus going together.
Can you give an example of an evaluation response versus a supportive or advice response?
So I have this idea. I'm going to speak very broadly, but if I say I have this idea, there's this problem in the world. These people are hungry, and I'm going to bring them food in this way. And someone says, that's great. That's like a really cool thing. That's a great thing that you should do.
That's
that's evaluative. That's great. You know, a positive evaluation. Or if they said, that problem, I don't know what you're thinking. That's a terrible idea. That's an evaluation. If they say, if you then say, well, if you think it's terrible, could you think of how to improve it? That's what I'm looking for, some advice. If they say, well, yeah, if instead of getting donation, you put something in so that you get some revenue that's part of the model, that could work. That's more social entrepreneurship. And instead of just charity, then you go, okay, great, thank you. That's what I was looking for, some advice.
So that's good or that's bad, some kind of.
Good, bad, that's evaluation. They're expressing their values, evaluation, values.
We have 5 minutes left.
Oh,
That's all.
5 minutes, okay. The problem determines the solution. The more you focus on the problem, the better you can solve it. Almost nothing inspires like helping others so much that they pay you for it. Now they pay you for it, it's not just about money there, it's about their values. Do they think this is more important to me than my money? You have to, you've got to look at it from their perspective. And that's what really inspires people, inspires you. So results. The results that I see, yes, you start companies, but the big thing is learning about responsibility, initiative, empathy, compassion, how to communicate value, creating supportive community. And the big one is uncovering passions by learning how to act on them. That's the biggest outcome of this, is you can act on your passions. Man, I'd love to go through the student voices. I'll pick just one. I've like 20 pages of like people saying like this is one of the greatest classes I've ever taken. So those of you who look at the slides, you can read this through, but I got 5 minutes. So, but there's one that I want to point here. As a senior, this was the first course that challenged me, asking me to think outside my comfort zones. NYU is a very good school. This is an elite school. 7 semesters they've gone through. You know that they've written a lot of papers. You know they've analyzed a lot of stuff. You know they've done a lot of academic stuff. So how are they first time challenged here? Because it's, my understanding is because it's personal growth, professional growth. They're changing as a person in a way that abstract knowledge and facts just doesn't do. Overcoming social and emotional challenges, starting small but getting up to some big ones, that's what does it. But note also, it is also where I developed a strong network of support through group projects, because you're working with other people.